Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me. In my series Freemasonry and Satanism, I have a new book, a new series, number 98. Wow. Now I know we're all spiritual beings in these biological bodies. And if you can imagine that there's a silver cord connected to the top of my head that connects me to the divine world. Look it up on your computer. Silver cord connected to humans. So we're all somehow by this cord, in big cities, all those people on the sidewalk, thousands of silver cords connecting them all to some kind of consciousness. God's world. And interestingly enough, if you learn how to astral travel, or have any one of those experiences where you leave your body, apparently that part of your soul that leaves you and is over here, for example, looking back at you when you have an out-of-body experience, there's a little silver cord, a thread, that connects it to that entity, that part of you that left your body. So here's your spirit, or soul, part of it, leaving your body, able to look back at you, and from it is a little silver thread connecting to your body. And from the top of your head is a silver cord connecting you to the spiritual realm. Remember, I've decided after doing a lot of videos to try to dwell into what is this occult stuff. And I saved, I guess, the best for last. Besides, it's probably the most complicated. And the books were this thick. Like this Helena Blavatsky's Secret Doctrine, Morals and Dogma, the Bible for the Freemasons, the Bible itself I've been reading from. So in the beginning I was doing the New World Order books, UFO alien books, and ancient history and remote viewing and all kinds of topics. The Jewish conspiracies, the whole gamut, you know. I wanted to do a well-rounded research because I'm convinced everything's connected. So this number 98, with my continuing to pursue and explain, and to explain it to myself too, what is the occult? And I continue searching for books. I think I found one that's quite interesting. The symbol on the front of the book is kind of interesting. So you got a pyramid, skull and bones, an earth with wings on it, try, an anchor, and a circle. It looks like a lamp with flames on it. Let's look a little bit more into this book. Try. Title of this book is The 3 Sevens, A Story of Initiation. Let me tell you, it's interesting. You're not going to believe it. Notice the 3 sevens, and right above it, founders of the Hermetic Brotherhood of Atlantis, Lexor and Alphonte. The 3 sevens, looking like a variation of a swastika, goes in a circle, and the Hermetic Order right above it, another variation of the Rosicrucians, together with an introduction by a neophyte of the 8th priesthood, and extensive notes exemplifying occult laws by R. Swinburne Clymer, M.D. The Philosophical Publishing Company. So that's how I found out, because I know that a lot of books from the Theosophist Society were being published by the Philosophical Publishing Company. And of course they started out with another organization, the Theosophist Society, with the Lucifer Publishing Company. I wonder how many people watching this video don't even know what Lucifer means. Supposedly, it's Satan, the devil, the cast out angel of heaven. Why would God, the spiritual realm, cast out Lucifer and 1/3 of the angels? They must have been up to a little no good, you think? But anyways, because the Theosophist Society, other books were published by the Philosophical Publishing Company, I thought I would just plug that into the used book sites as the books I was searching for. And this one was called The Three Sevens, copyright 1938. So I don't think there's any problems there with me sharing this. And I'm only doing a book review. And here's the guy's membership card, which just tells a lot here. A snake eating its tail, some kind of thing with wings on it, inside a circle with the snake eating its tail, and called the Circle of Isis. You're not going to believe this. The snake eating its tail, the 4-winged thing inside, think swatch sticker, and other symbols with the wings, the globe with the wings, and Circle of Isis on this membership card. So you got to look for the little things. One for all, and all for one. So this is a facsimile of membership card held by R. Swinburne Clymer. Dr. Clymer became a member of the Hermetic Brotherhood of Atlantis, Luxor, and Alphante in 1900. In 1908, the Hermetic Brotherhood became a member of the Confederation of Initiates, registered, and all authority was vested in said organization. Introduction. This book, Three Sevens, written and published by the Phelons, probably saying it wrong, nearly 50 years ago, propounds an allegorical narrative from many of the basic principles of the occult philosophy of the ancient secret schools. Now, I've looked at a lot of these books, and they go a lot into the philosophy, but they really never get to the meat of the subject. The details we all want to know. What is magic? What is witchcraft? What is reality? Where did everything come from? Who are these people with all these secret mystery schools who swear under threat of death, having their throat cut or their stomach cut open, to not divulge the learnings and to obey the master of these temples, lodges, and cults? These schools, whose lineage may be traced directly back through the centuries, maintain that they have been and are today repositories for a sacred wisdom concerning man's origin and destiny. I think that's worth knowing, you think? Page 12 on the introduction. For either the end of the road to absolute knowledge is hidden like the mountaintops in mist that neither the human eye nor the intelligence can penetrate. And though it be the goal, it must be approached step by step, laboriously and painfully. So I'm going to bypass up to page 64, the story of ancient initiation, 3 sevens. And basically it's just a lot of conversation about this one man. I'll read this little bit here. In fact, I know this to be my case. Several hundred years ago, one of the grandfathers was a natural mystic. He loved the invisible more than the visible. He had eyes to see beyond the veil and ears to hear the sounds of the undiscovered country. In the archives of the old hall are written records of his supernatural powers, by which success came to him in spite of the accidents usually overwhelming common mortals. He was accused by the ignorant of superhuman knowledge. He was very near the throne, and at least 2 reigns were made powerful and brilliant through his direct influence. So he was an advisor probably to some kings. Now this guy is a descendant, and he wonders where he falls along in the lineage. Can a man be his own grandfather? To the natural mystic, no possible occurrence ever seems impossible. Everything we are conscious of is simply thought made visible. Whatever then, though, can reach, whatever then thought can reach, even the wildest flights of imagination may become under favorable conditions visible to personal sense. Noting that thought can grasp or the human mind conceive, let me try it again. Nothing that thought can grasp or the human mind conceive is impossible. If you think it's easy reading from a book and trying to make a video, try it. You gotta look up and make sure you're talking to the audience, the camera, and you gotta get the words right. And your brain wants to misinterpret things where they take the thought and make it into though. So you gotta be quick. So this guy says, from my earliest recollection, I have been able to see forms which to others are viewless, invisible. So again, I'm going to skip all this stuff, and I did read it all. 25. And I highlighted everything, just making a point here. So anyways, I'm getting to my little purple tag there. So you can see that I read it all recently, in the last 2 days, since I got this book in the mail this week, or last Friday. So let's go right to the tab. So all those prior 60 pages was this initiate going through the explanation of his family and his training and meeting, having an invisible master show up, and even letters appearing on his desk that nobody had been in his house. All kinds of references to magic and psychic experiences. 60 pages of it, quite interesting. I would try to find this book, The 3 Sevens. But when I got to page 64, I said, OMG, this is crazy. So I thought for the video, because we don't have a lot of time we really want to waste on all that good verbiage and good experiences that guy had. I mean, it was a pretty interesting conversation. So maybe when I get done with the book, I'll go back and do all that in the beginning to share all that. It'll take some work. But I thought, because of the topics I've been on lately, like with Carlos Castaneda in the Separate Reality, where he was meeting with the Shama, sorcerer, witchcraft, medical doctor for the natives, and taking peyote to be able to see the invisible. Physical realm, physical reality, versus non-physical reality, visible reality versus non-visible reality. Here I go. You're not going to believe it, actually. In the wall opposite the divan It's some kind of sofa. Was fitted a large square stone of polished black marble, 7 feet in length and breadth. So a square 7-foot black marble. Square. Made out of black marble. 7 feet long. Taller than a human. Wider. Square. What does that mean? Okay, in the very important here, in the United Nations meditation room, there's a huge black stone. The United Nations meditation room has a lot of occult symbolism. In Ramadan, whatever they call it, there where the Muslims meet and they all walk around this gigantic stone in a circle for their religious pilgrimage. It's a large black stone. Just thought the coincidence was interesting. So he's in this laboratory of the Guru, his master. And in the wall opposite the divan was fitted a large square stone of polished black marble, 7 feet in length and breadth. Inscribed within the square was a double circle of white marble. Between these two circles were arranged in regular order a red signs of the zodiac. I'm not quite sure what the word P-O-R-P-H-Y-R-Y means. I should look it up. At the four corners, also inlaid of the red stone, were a line, a triangle, a right triangle, and a square. So he's in his Guru's laboratory. In the center of the room stood an altar, like the one in the Hall of Obligation, but smaller. Rugs covered with seats and divan. At the head of the divan, a shelved niche held a few papyrus rolls, dark with age and use. Papyrus rolls. Ancient text, I suspect. Hardly had this thought framed itself in my mind when my Guru said, "In our explorations of nature's realm, we do not study effects, believing them to be causes. We do not investigate the unreal and changeable to find out changeless law. The reflection can teach us but little about the substance of the reflection. Your training has hitherto been a unit, so far as it is concerned the Trinity of man, body, soul, and spirit. But now you must learn to know more fully by what right the spirit claims and maintains dominance over all lower planes of manifestation. During your year of preparation, your study will be of the real, of its laws, of the laws of mind, of our relations to those laws, which mankind as a whole has so studiously perverted these many years. We do not need to study books, for we may use the repository of all knowledge, even the astral light. Let us begin our day's duties by passing into the silence." So they can access the repository of all knowledge. I suspect that's the Akashic records. Some kind of occult, celestial records keeping place. With everything that's ever happened in life, in the universe, with every person, everything. The first principles of manifestation filled my whole attention. Coming back to consciousness of the outer, I noticed a single ray of sunlight rested on the altar. Just reading my highlighted portions. Here the action of mental force upon vitalized physical conditions were studied that there might be certainly of self-confidence in our contact with nature. My Gurus said the study of mathematics and geometry were devised to train the mentality in concentration. In philosophy, we're constantly seeking to identify ourselves with God and with the universe. When he was not engaged with me, he was occupied with the Kabbalah. from which he declared knowledge of everything in the universe could be obtained, that being at once a key and an encyclopedia. The Kabbalah. Remember, Madonna's into the Kabbalah. Many of the Jews are into the Kabbalah. Lots of people are into this Kabbalah stuff. The problems of geometry were invented by the masters to teach the relations of the unseen forces to the visible and the manifested, and not to the physical application. Here the demonstration of the right-angled triangle. The right angle represents the equal balancing of the spiritual, the physical forces, so that neither shall bring detrimental to the other. The perpendicular stands for the spiritual. The horizontal, the physical conditions, lie continually along the same plane, never rising above it, nor can it fall below it. So apparently a right triangle is a straight down and straight over, and then of course the line that goes all the way to the top. So this line here is the physical. This line here going up, of course, would be the spiritual. And the line here that meets the two represents the equal balancing of the spiritual and the physical. So this is the spiritual, physical, and the balancing between the two. Just interesting. Okay, the point in the 7 principles of man is represented by the astral body. So like I said earlier in this video, if you do learn how to travel outside your body, or you have an out-of-body experience, let's say you died in a hospital and they put the 2 electrodes on your chest and brought you back, and some people come back and they go, I was up here and I could see you operating on me, doctor. There would have been a little hair-like silver thread connecting you to your body, and your body was still alive, and there would have been a silver cord connecting you to the heavens. And apparently when you do die, according to this book and some other material I've studied, not saying this is true, I'm saying this is what the occultists believe. And I think that's what we need to think about and try to learn what they think and what they believe. But apparently even when you die, the silver cord doesn't go away right away. Your whole body has to disintegrate, has to go back to dust. So if they bury alive, or not alive, but a flesh and blood cadaver, a dead body, then the silver cord would go away maybe in 3 or 4 days for all the cells in the body to actually die. So in this book they recommend that you get cremated so that your cells are dead quicker, so that your soul can leave and go to the divine right away, instead of hanging around. FYI, just conversation. This point in the 7 principles of man is represented by the astral body. This bond is representative by the hypotenuse, which connects the spiritual and physical on the opposite ends of the line. So the spiritual on a right angle, the physical, and the hypotenuse connects the spiritual and physical to the opposite ends of the line. The extreme points of the perpendicular and horizontal coalescing with the extreme points of the hypotenuse represent body, soul, and spirit, which are but manifestations of the divine power and presence. A square is the symbol of perfection. It has 4 equal sides and 4 equal angles. This makes for 4 equal perfection. Because manifestation exists as physical, it does not follow that it is imperfect. Furthermore, the physical, spiritual, and intelligent are the triad, which would be incomplete if either of the elements were imperfect or wanting. Page 68. All things must exist as hereon named. Then the stated demonstration will also exist. But it is clearly proven the power and unity of the One, who is, and was, and will be, through all coming cycles. It is acknowledged by all philosophers that no matter how our environment changes, in form, no element is ever lost. This unseen and forgotten force is man's birthright, as the images and likeness of the One. The mighty spirit within looked straight beyond the environment. The mighty spirit within looked straight beyond the environment into the vastness of limited space. It was the concentration of the potent will. On the rocky floor between us appeared a yellowish mist, which apparently solidified into a gold pistol, lay before my astonished eyes. So his Guru, using his power from a tiny ray coming from the sun, made a piece of gold appear on the floor, demonstrating his powers. Because this initiate, they call it a Sheila also, asked, "Can this be demonstrated to personal sense?" was my question. And his mentor said, "Let us see. Sit quietly, and you shall have proof." I looked at him as he sat motionless, under the broad band of sunlight streaming into the room. His majestic face became immovable and fixed in its laminates as if carved in marble. The mighty spirit within, that would be in his Guru, looked straight beyond the environment into the vastness of limited space. It was the concentration of his potent will. On the rocky floor between us appeared a yellowish mist, which apparently solidified into a gold pistol, lay before my astonished eyes. So the Guru, sitting in the sun's rays, gazed at the floor, and a yellow mist appeared, and then it transformed into a piece of gold. You see why I jumped ahead to the good stuff? Remember, these people are the secret mystery schools of Babylon, whether you call them Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Kabbalah, Illuminati, witchcraft, all these different occult organizations, thousands of them in different names, Order de Templarius, Knights of the Round Table, Knights Templar, just witchcraft and magicians, and this goes back throughout the ages. So I just think it might behoove us to get a little snapshot of what it's all about. And it gets much more interesting as I read on here, page to page. But because by mutual agreement, mankind could, by its use, gratify self, they have veiled their perceptions of the true gold of life, consisting of the mastery of the passions and self-domination. The dream of juggling pretenders never left the physical plane in its search. The dream of juggling pretenders never left the physical plane in its search after the philosopher's stone, which is the will directed by wisdom and tempered with knowledge. So a lot of us, like we all know, we create our own reality. Some people put big pictures on a wall of a nice house and a boat and other kind of things, material that they want. And there are many books written about this stuff. And it seems to try to attract it from the universe, and eventually they obtain that. Just an interesting thing. The vibrations of the astral forces hold in solution the essence of all things. Out of this can be crystallized by the will and touch, or capable of harmoniously attuning its own vibrations whatsoever, has at any past time manifested itself to personal sense as the formulation of previous thought. Thou canst measure here the true value of gold, where we have neither desire nor use for it. So if you can manifest anything right out of the air, why do you need gold or anything? Another month went by, he continued. As the moon approached the full, I felt conscious of a rapid gain in my understanding of the true relations of my real self to the macrocosm. True relation of my real self to the macrocosm. My Guru had been discoursing on man's responsibility for his dominion over not only himself and his fellows, but also over every living organism on the earth. He maintained that man had rule and dominion over even the wildest beast, if he chose to cultivate and use it. Not by physical means, not simply by the power of the eye, so much vaunted among civilized people, but by the unseen, silent currents which sway all animated existence. He who constrains in that manner must be fearless and brave. It is not the eye, but the force behind it that rules. In plain sight, a giant jaguar was crouching. They were up on the mountain looking out one of the windows, upon a little clump of trees, waiting the coming of a mountain antelope. "See, O my brother," I exclaimed, "certain destruction awaits the antelope." The Guru says, "Possibly not," replied my Guru. "You may see an illustration of my words. The antelope will not be harmed." I waited in suspense. The look of projected power passed over my teacher's face. So the teacher's willing the jaguar not to pounce on the antelope. When it had gone by, the jaguar crept down from its hiding place and slunk out of sight. A short time after this, another incident of the same controlling power was as fully and strikingly given. A swift messenger was needed for use. So they needed to send a message to somebody. Why the usual method of dissolution and rematerialization were not employed, I do not know, as it was no business of mine, but concerned my Guru alone. So they needed to get a swift message out, and he was wondering why the guy didn't use ordinary means to send the message. Watching him, as one feels the flow of electric current, so came to my inner sense perception of the impelled power of will in its greatest concentration. The vibrations were strong enough to appeal to the sense of clairvoyance, clairaudience. So you got clairaudience, you can hear things, or clairvoyance, you can see things. First a hum, and then a well-defined musical sound manifested itself. The impression was of a call that could not be resisted. The sound was peculiar and far-reaching because the direct result of the impulsion of dominant will. So we're going to learn a lot about will here. You notice I wrote the word will on this page. So everybody has a will. We can manifest our reality. I think we have control over ourselves. We all have our weaknesses, whatever they might be. Drinking beer, wine, eating chocolate. And it's your will that can change things. But a lot of us seem to get stuck in our traps. All right, let's see what the Guru can do with his will, wanting to send a message. A few minutes passed, and out of the brightness of a cloudless sky, a speck grew into a bird, and an immense untamed condor flew straight as an arrow shot from a bow, alighted on the rocky ledge at the feet of my teacher. He attached to the neck of the motionless monarch of the mountain air a chain and a packet in the same manner as carrier pigeons are used. So this Guru was able to get a condor manifested out of the air, called him to take a message. Sounds like a Harry Potter movie. But this is a real book. What are these mystery schools? Why do they have all these secret temples and lodges and rituals? Why are they giving us all these strange rituals of satanic rituals and things during football halftime shows? Obviously, it's for something to be done to all the public, people who watch it. And the satanic rituals, Illuminati, Katy Perry, and all the other one, Lady Gaga, Madonna, Beyonce, and others on Grammys, Emmys, BET Awards, and Bieber and Miley Cyrus. Listen to the words of the songs. Songs are vibrations. They have power. and then the satanic ritual opening up the tunnel in Switzerland, and the symbols out in front of CERN trying to open up some kind of portal with the goddess of destruction Shiva out front. It's going to make a little more sense here in a few moments. The condor, having thus received his message, poised himself, his great pinions spread, and then far off from whence he came, again received him into itself. So the condor flew away with the message. If man had not lost the memory of the things that rightfully belonged to him, said my Guru, he would never lack helpers or messengers. He has trusted to the arm of flesh and been overthrown. When will he see that the perfect spirit brings the perfect body? And the two are essential to the perfect man who was given dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. It was not the dominion of physical force either, for that is the weakest force of the universe. And also, as I've said in my videos, I'm a Christian, and Jesus performed all those miracles, and when his disciples complained they couldn't do as well as Jesus, he said, "Ye of so little faith." So I guess the stronger you believe, and that you know that you can use the powers of God to heal people and cast out spirits, your will increases. And some people have really strong will, and some people have very little will. Some people have great determination to achieve something in life, and some people really don't. They're really happy working for the downtown, sweeping the streets or washing dishes in restaurants. And of course, some people want to be the chef, and then some people want to own the restaurant, and then some people want to own a whole chain of restaurants. And of course, then you got the Zionist Jewish folks who want to own the whole world, and they have a will, and they have knowledge of this stuff, which is my point. And then another opposing force to humanity are the different other occultic lodges, Illuminati, and Rosicrucian, Freemasons, and many others, the Bohemian Grove, Bilderberger groups. And what do they know, Skull and Bones, that George Bush come from? And if they have these kinds of occultic witchcraft knowledge, which I don't believe it's necessarily bad learning to learn how to heal and cure things and manifest out of reality, but when they want to keep it from everybody else, therein lies the problem, because we're at a disadvantage. And I think by the time I finish reading this stuff I'm going to read in this video, in this book, anybody watching it will be a little bit more illumined, which will put the opposing forces at a little bit more of a disadvantage. It'll strengthen our position if we can be aware of what they can do. And then, of course, we, with our will and our belief and prayer, like Rabbi Marvin Antelman writing the 2 volumes, 1 and 2, to eliminate the opate. He was basically, it should have just said to eliminate your belief in God and your prayer, because they know it works. And when you know it works and you talk to God, what's the old saying? Ask and ye shall receive. So there is this battle going on, and that's what I'm trying to make a point of. Plus, we got a rare book here where somebody actually wrote the stuff about what he was initiated into and what he saw and what he did. His rightful position amongst created intelligence is next to the infinite, because this is the initiate having activity with the Guru, and he's putting all this conversation in a book, like we did with the separate reality with Carlos Castellanda, going to Mexico, working with Don Juan, the sorcerer, taking peyote, and learning about the natures and learning how to be able to see the invisible reality. This change pertains entirely to the 4 principles which make up the astral body. Remember what I said, if you die in a hospital and they're bringing you back to life, and you find yourself floating up here, there's a thread connecting you to your body, And here there's a cord connecting you to the divine, according to my research. And this thing out here that's looking back at itself is the astral body. And apparently the government, with Tim Rifat, David Morehouse, Ingo Swann, and many others, had black op programs with these people learning how to leave their body and go spy on the Russians and Chinese and actually can enter people's bodies and control them. It's a whole science. And we, the people, need to wrap our head around it. The link that binds the astral body to its physical expression is adaptable, but it is not to be handled or toyed with without knowledge, lest there happen events that cannot be recalled. We can send another, wearing only his astral body, out into the astral currents. We should, however, first be perfectly certain that the power which sends forth is fully able to recall. Otherwise, there may be sad remembrances for us and knowledge gained by awful experience of currents twisted into cyclones, of gales, of cross currents, and of the karma to undergo that which was not ours until thus rashly appropriated. So leaving your body and traveling in the astral plane, the ether, apparently there are dynamic forces like cyclones or winds like the Gulf Stream in the water that can literally whisk you away, capture you. But, my dear young brother, thou hast reached a point where, if thou hast desired to see for thyself the twofold distinction of the astral and the physical body, now is thy time and opportunity. Look steadfastly upon me. So the Guru is saying, now is your time to learn this. Obeying his command, a strange sensation of quiet and rest crept over me. A shudder, and then a thrill, succeeded by a sense of ease and lightness. A momentary confusion, as when one passes from the darkness into the light. I was conscious of being outside my body, which at my side was lying at ease, to all appearance sleeping. So now he's out of his body. His guru told him to relax. And he's looking and he sees himself lying there. Like the experience I went over in previous videos of my experience of being an out-of-body experience. Which I had mine Christmas Day in the evening after I had done charity work all day. And it was quite the experience. And I've described it in previous videos. So I was conscious of being outside my body, which at my side was lying at ease, and to all appearance sleeping. That's what happened to me. To my inner hearing came the voice of my preceptor. Thou hast passed temporarily the change which, when permanent, men call death. The difference is that thou hast not relinquished thy right to thy body, and can re-enter at thy will, assisted by me. Wait, and I will call a guide for thee. Resisting the impulse to move, my will held the Skion Lika until another astral form I recognized as a temple dweller joined me. So the Guru called for him to have a guide. If thou hast desire, lay thy hand in his and formulate thy wish, were the words distinctively heard. I did as I was bidden. I wished to see my birthplace in far-off Spain, rested heavily on my soul. At the instant my thoughts became an entity to myself, I was conscious of a swift movement eastward. So he's holding the hand of the guide, sort of like that Christmas show with Scrooge, and he wished that he could go to his birthplace, because he's been in this mountain enclave, this castle, for quite a while, studying for 7 years with the Guru. Suddenly we felt our way confronted, here we go, by a wall of thick darkness. So here they are in the astral plane cruising along. Supposedly he's going home. That is opposing force acting blindly, following the simple law of projection, said my guide, his voice ringing out in bell-like cadence. A quality which distinguishes all astral utterances. Wait until I shall inform the Giru. So they're cruising along and they come to this opposing force, thick darkness. Got a bug on my leg here. A movement in his far-off potent voice commanded. So the Giru is far off, but you could hear his voice. Fear not, but move forward. My force is sufficient for you. No shadow of fear fell upon us, and we plunged into the midst of the darkness. Ages condensed into a second of time. Resistance made against terrible constriction and oppression, but no thought of retreat. A passage is cleft. Brightness and light once more envelop us. So they went through this mass of darkness. Sounds like a Star Trek ship going through a cloud of something or another, like the TV program. All this time I considered the swift moving toward the east. As in a vivid dream, we stand at last at my ancestral hall. Familiar with the surroundings, I explained various points of interest to my guide. He gravely acknowledged the courtesy, and when I presented him to some of the cavaliers in waiting, his eyes smiled, and I noticed they made no response. Now came to my consciousness a certain air of solemnity, solemn, such as precedes a waiting event in the life of earth. So all of a sudden he's noticing something going on at his home castle. My father lay on a pallet, pallid and exhausted. So I guess his father was dying. So the Giru probably knew this. So that's why he sent this initiate to this event. His faithful attendants stood near, and also my mother. As she had been dead many years, I was again momentarily confused, but remembering my present condition, I moved to her side and greeted her. So she was already dead in spirit form, but apparently she had come to the bedside of her husband, who was still alive, and here he shows up in his astral body. She affectionately returned my greeting. In answer to my question why she still remained on the astral plane, she replied, I wait for thy father before passing into the Devachan. D-E-V-A-C-H-A-N. There's a little note on the bottom here. If two persons on earth who truly love are separated by the occurrence mortals call death, the one passing on is privileged to wait in the beyond until the other is released from the physical. This is a manifestation of the potency and mercy of the eternal, infinite law of love. But how is this? Are you also free? So they call dying and your soul being outside your body, they call that being free. I told her I was not yet liberated, only let loose for a little while. Then as we talked, the extreme moment came to my father. The astral body rising from the physical before, becoming entirely free, discerned us conversing. The physical body, sympathizing in the transport of joy, exclaimed in its last effort, "Oh, my dear wife, my son Manuel." So the guy was dying right there at that instant, and as his spirit was leaving his body, he noticed his wife and son. My father's astral body joined our group. Inquiries and information passed rapidly. I asked my guide if they could not return with us. When their days of purification are over, he said, it may be possible, but thy Giru calls, say thy farewell. So now the Giru is calling the initiate back. Parting tenderly, our ghosts separated. As we, mounting into the regions of clearer vision, moved westward, I noticed a thread of silvery luster stretching far into the dim distance. To my question, "What is that?" my companion answered, "It is the silver cord, not yet unloosed, which binds us to our bodies." So when you're traveling, you can see the silver thread. Suddenly, a whirling, unintelligible murmur fell upon my hearing. To my questioning, my guide made answer, "That is the voice of the viewless races, to whose forms thy eyes are this day closed by the teacher's wisdom." So apparently there are many people alive in this ether, entities. At death, the silver cord is but partially severed until the law of dust to dust is first fulfilled, as I explained earlier. Until the physical body has disintegrated and the elements have returned each to its own, the soul cannot find its full freedom. In recognition of this law, initiates believe and teach the cremation is desirable, for it brings earlier release to the soul. Little FYI note on the bottom there. There's a bunch of notes on the bottom I'll read. And my point here, again, is we know there's a new age, and there's going to be a forced new religion on all of us, and it appears to be satanic and Luciferian. They seriously want to destroy Christianity and discredit or eliminate all remembrance of Jesus. And one should ask why. And they're mind controlling the population with all this crazy stuff going on. And people actually believe it. They're going to believe that Jesus and Christianity, it's all evil. And they'll probably be beheading people who don't join and swear allegiance to the Luciferian New Age. The symbols are all there, everywhere. But let me get back to the book. We all know my opinion. Hardly had he finished speaking when we were caught in a vast cyclone, on whose outer edge we were swiftly whirled away from our direct course. So in this ether, when they're cruising along in the astral plane, in their astral bodies, they got caught up in this cyclone like a tornado. "Lay thy hand in mine and let thy purpose hold fast," hurriedly whispered my guide. "And when we have passed a semi-circumference, we shall again be drawn on our course." So they were going this way, and the cyclone was taking them around, and when they get to their proper course, they'll continue on. "By his will who watches over us." So the Guru was watching over them, "and already perceives our danger. We are immediately over the earth's great battles. Thou seest how the fury of thought reaches beyond the physical." So if you're having a huge battle on the earth, apparently that creates a lot of serious thought, you think? People in outrage and all that, and apparently it can cause quite physical or fury in the planes, all that thinking and vibrations. "Thou seest how the fury of thought reaches beyond the physical. Safely and quickly we reach the farther pole, and we're again moving in line of the direction straight ahead." Yeah, so all of we, the humans, our thinking and our thoughts affect more than the physical plane. It affects the non-physical reality, the invisible reality. Just something to know. "And now we found ourselves on the brink of a current sweeping irresistibly along, which crossed our way at right angles. This," said my guide, "is projected force, bent on its own accomplishment, but it would hurl us into dire straits if caught in it. But it has no power, however, on the silver cord of life. We can pass over it." Then rising far above all the movement, presently we found ourselves once more in the familiar surroundings. Irresistibly drawn as one awakens from a dream, I resumed my natural condition, and the low, sweet tones of my teacher's voice fell upon my ear. "Thou hast been much favored," it said, "to welcome thy father into the invisible country." So I guess he was sent to go see his father die to welcome into the invisible country. I perceived the approaching event, and thus was able to gratify both thee and thy father. It is not necessarily that the dead should become visible for mortal converse, but that the living may also become visible in the distant places, and this is even easier. Thus they may stand on a common plane until such time as the spirit yields up its astral body, when in company with its soul, it passes on to the condition of rest and assimilation. But you are weary. Retire to thy apartment, and tomorrow I will hear thy questions. Take with thee my congratulations for thy prompt obedience, courage, and fearlessness in this new adventure. On the morrow, my Guru said, thou canst understand the things thou sawest how dangerous, I like these thous and all that, is the astral way to him who adventures without knowledge or preparation, and yet thou didst see only the ordinary incidences. If to thy sight had been revealed the invisible forms of the hostile races, which crowd all the broad domain called space, if thou couldst have heard their words of discouragement and misleading, perchance even the high courage might have failed thee. So apparently it was a good thing he couldn't see all these other entities out there who would have been attacking him and trying to discourage him. Notwithstanding all this, there have been those who being void of wisdom, have hastened to brave these dangers. It is a wonder under such circumstances that the thread of life should be so suddenly snapped asunder, and the experimenters themselves precipitated into a hastened doom. So there are people who have attempted to astral travel only to, when they're out there, have the silver cord severed, and then they can never return to their bodies. It is well always to understand the laws and customs of any country into which you contemplate journeying. It may save us some confusion in the end. So I agree, if you're going to go into the astral plane and travel outside your body, you better learn what you're doing. Now, we've already heard with the many of the videos and books I've read that even in the ancient shamas in Peru, all over the world, these people were chosen as little boys or girls to be the doctor, the witch doctor shama. But that doesn't mean that that person all their life is going to be a good shama and can use those powers for evil. And that's why I go over this stuff for this video, not to be teaching people how to do this stuff, but to be aware that this is what we're dealing with. Forces of people who know how to use white magic or black magic, and if they do think they're better than us, or they think there's too many of us, and they want to cull the herd, so to speak, reduce the population, as is said on the Georgia USA Guidestones by some guy named R.C. Christian who installed them, and that tells me it's Rosicrucian, R.C. Christian. It might behoove the rest of us to wake up that these people that are into the occult really think there'll be a much nicer planet with about 90% of us not here. You think? And send everybody back into the invisible realm. We're going to set you free. You get to go back to the invisible realm. I'm just reading books and sharing. Sounds crazy? Well, let me continue. These some notes on the bottom. To be able to safely and wisely witness activities on the astral realm requires complete cleansing and transmutation of all that is unworthy in mind and body. The body must be strengthened, the emotions and passions refined, ideals of love and service established. So I guess if you're going to successfully travel in the astral plane, you better have good intent and probably protection. Me, I would put my faith in God and Jesus. Just like some people who have been abducted by aliens, which I suspect are these astral beings, and they called out in Jesus' name, And these so-called alien beings drop these people like a hot potato. FYI. Only after a preparation that usually requires years in the way opened by means of practices taught into the higher occult arcanum. So most people have to study this stuff for years and be initiated. To this way of the true golden rosy cross, none but those who are prepared and worthy may approach, for neither possessions nor power can influence or compel the priesthood of initiates to disclose the rose or of Sharon to any of those but who have earned the privilege and approach. So they mentioned the golden rosy cross, which sounds like Rosicrucians again. There are methods and practices. If I start talking too long, I start getting a dry mouth. My words start getting tongue-tied. Pardon me. There are methods and practices through which the physical vision can be opened to the astral realm without preparation. So the psychic vision, you, me, people being psychic, can be opened to the astral realm without preparation. But therein lie the dangers of the occult. The Occidental is curious, and he is impatient. To satisfy his curiosity, he will pay, without counting the ultimate cost, for immediate results. There are those who, in exchange for such pay, will promise and provide quicker results. The ultimate cost that was not considered is a shattered nervous system at best, degraduation and madness as a usual outcome. So somebody could probably go into madness, go insane. Beware of shortcuts. The landmarks of the true path are love and service. All right, over here back to the writings. It is well always to understand the laws and customs of any country into which you contemplate journeying. That's true. If thou hereafter shalt desire to try thy powers in this direction, look steadily at the coin in thy possession. So the Guru is telling him, if he ever wants to try to leave his body again, stare at the coin in thy possession, holding it in the palm of thy hand. If danger impedes or uncertainty confuses, think of me as I have taught thee, and the thinking shall be the talisman of safety. So thinking of the Guru, he can connect to the Guru, and the Guru can save him from the dangers. With closer and closer attention and more intense eagerness, I pursued my studies yet more diligently. I was absorbed entirely in the getting of understanding for the love of it, regardless of what might be the result or outcome of the possession of that understanding. Nor was I conscious of desire. Some notes on the bottom of this page. Think well and with discernment in seeking the path. Hesitate and approach with care any suggestion of a quick and easy way. The true path is narrow and difficult and leads only upward, but when the guide is followed, no harm may befall in spite of danger. When the heart is selfish and true to itself, when the heart is unselfish and true to itself, the search for wisdom from pure love of it leads to the light. So I suppose I should take a break so I can relax and maybe speak a little better. Let's try to finish this video. All right, moving on. While sitting one evening by myself, the tropical moon shining in all its fervency and lighting up the whole interior of my apartment, I remembered my Guru's words about the coin. I took it in my right hand, adjusting my body comfortably in a reclining altitude. I fixed my gaze upon the coin. Almost instantly, a little thrill passed over me. Then came the feeling of lightness with which I was already familiar. A moment later, and my astral body was looking at the grosser bodily vesture as it lay immovable and solid up on the divan. So he's like laying on a sofa. So the Guru told him for the next time he wanted to leave his body to stare at the coin, and apparently he did it, and now he's looking at his body. Going down, this was attached to me by a bright cord running from the coin to myself in some indefinable way through the body. So between himself and I guess the body, he sees a silver coin, a silver thread, a silver cord. Get the words out. Going down the long flight of steps, I went to the fountain in the garden and sat down to think. So he's outside of his body, and he's traveling around the castle. As I mused, the whirling noise of which I had been so dimly conscious in my first journey became more and more distinct, until I could hear the converse of the unseen. So he could hear the conversations or noise from the unseen beings. There's some notes on the bottom of this page. The term astral, to signify the soul, is not now generally used by the Rosy Cross and schools of initiates. Earlier writers made use of it because it seemed to be more readily understood by the student. While the body is active, the soul is held in bondage and sees as through a glass darkly. When the soul has become conscious, the body, through long training, can be momentarily forgotten, and with the visual unimpeded, the doors of the soul realm are opened to the sight. So apparently, when I'm conscious right now of this body, I can't see the other realm, nor can my soul see. But when I find out a way to arrest this body, to make it go to sleep in a trance, my soul can move about freely, almost like dreaming, I guess. The soul does not leave the body, but while the body remains in a passive state, it can span the spaces, limited only by its degree and consciousness, which is dependent on the extent and success of the training it has undergone. So apparently your fundamental soul, your basic soul, doesn't leave your body, but a portion of it, with this fine silver thread, can go anywhere and look. I guess it's like having a long extension cord on your eyes. If they could leave your body and go anywhere and look. So apparently your soul can do this, or your spirit, when you go into the proper state. Now remember, I'm not necessarily believing all this Rosicrucian and other mystery school of Babylon teachings, but I think it does show us, and it would behoove us to be aware what this occult stuff means, and that this other dimension does exist. And apparently the people who have all these secret mystery schools are incommunicado and use these beings for their control, which the next video I make on this book gets into greater detail. It's amazing. So it seems somehow I just got lucky and found this book. Three Sevens, a story of ancient initiation. And I've been watching some of those videos, one by some lady talking to some being called Abraham, with an audience of people there. I'll have to make a copy of this and show it. But where they're telling people that they can have and be anything they want, that they are gods. Sort of like the Rosicrucian teaching and the New Age teaching. And I'm becoming very suspicious of all this. I subscribe to the Bible and Jesus, and I believe there are warnings about getting into the occult. But for me to try to find out what these people on Earth who belong to these mystery schools, who control our planet, who apparently believe there needs to be a huge depopulation of the people, planning the new age, the new world order, promoting the gay agenda, biodiversity, global warming, terrorism, created with crisis actors, 911 of course created, World War I and World War II through my studies were created or instigated behind the people's back. The people were deceived. So I'm going to make another video out of this, from this book, maybe 2 videos. I've read quite a bit more, and the future occult activities are much more intense. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.